Good morning, everybody. I'm Jason Rawbone, for those who don't know me. I'm seconded into the Welsh Government from Powys County Council to help provide implementation to the Universal Primary Preschool Meal Project. Started... Can you replay the microphone? Oh, sorry, yes. Is that better? I hope you can all hear me anyway in this small room. Thank you. Started in March with the Welsh Government team, and I've got to say it's been a huge learning curve for the project since the announcement from the Welsh Government in December last year to implementation. I'll show you a slide in a moment that gives you some sort of vision of what the achievements have been so far to date. And then my colleague Gemma will do the second slide for me. We'll be hanging around afterwards if you need to speak to us at all. Okay. So that's the intro page. So can you all see that okay? It is bilingual. English is in black. Apologies if it's not very clear, but I'll talk through it anyway. Okay, so from December last year, Plaid Cymru and Welsh Government Labour announced a cooperation agreement that by 2024 September, all primary school pupils in Wales will receive free school meals. Okay, so that was 9 months ago, or just over 9 months ago. To date, and that I should say is 186,000 by September. The information and the stats are taken from PLASC 22, so they may slightly go up or down. So progress to date, from September this year, the aspiration was that all local authorities provide free school meals to reception year group, and I can happily say, and many thanks, which I've already said, to the local authority teams and the local authority wider in local authority to making that achievement. All 22 providing reception year groups with free school meals from September this year, beginning of term. That equates to some 45,000 pupils now eligible for free school meals. That's not including those who are already eligible under means tested benefit free school meals. Okay, also in September, some authorities were able to go further because of the infrastructure they had, and it was easier for them. 8 local authorities have also provided, as well as reception, to years 1 and 2 year groups as well. It's expected that 66,000 by April next year. The Minister's aspiration is that years 1 and 2 will go live with free school meals from April. Most authorities have said they can achieve that. There are some challenges with some local authorities, and I'll mention them in a moment. And then further to that, after in September 23 next year, it's expected the majority of local authorities can roll out to Key Stage 2, and that's years 3 to 6. There are a few authorities that are struggling to keep up that momentum with other local authorities. However, we're working with those local authorities to overcome the challenges. And the main challenges that we're seeing across speaking with local authorities are infrastructure, space in terms of kitchen development, in terms of upgrading their kitchens. Some local authority schools haven't got kitchens at all, so they're looking at implementing pods or kitchen units to be built in there. Obviously, it takes time. Needs planning permission, needs additional funding. Okay, so we're working with those to look at how we overcome those challenges. Staffing has been a big theme in terms of, with the further rollout to the year groups as they come on board, staffing has been the general consensus around most local authorities saying they will struggle because staffing across the board, I think in all sectors, is difficult at this moment in time in terms of recruitment. So yeah, we're working with them. So it's still the Minister's expectations that by 2024, all primary schools, and still the expectation of the cooperation agreement, Plaid Cymru and Welsh Labour, to introduce and implement that commitment. Okay. The next slide, my colleague will come and talk to you about in terms of our portfolio board and how that operates. So I'll welcome Gemma.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Jason. So I'm Gemma Roche-Clark. I joined the team only about 8 weeks ago, so I'm really new to this space, and I recognise everybody here are the experts. I don't want to teach you anything you don't know, but just sort of giving you an overview of what our relatively small team in Welsh Government are trying to do. So we've got 4 working groups. Each are going to be mostly internal stakeholders. We're going to be inviting external expertise as and when we need it. So the first group is the general UPFSM group, and that's going to be sort of managing the delivery, I suppose, of the programme, but also keeping an eye on the wider objectives of the programme, which, as you will know, are things that include tackling child poverty, hunger, the existing EFSM threshold for income, household income is relatively low, it's very low. So there's lots of families who don't get the eligibility rated free school meals because their threshold is too high. Reducing inequalities. So I'm also going to be looking at the whole school approach to food. So everybody in this room knows why food is really important in schools, good, healthy, nutritious food that children have time to eat, social time to eat their food, time to digest it, time to play afterwards, why that's really important. We want to make sure that's part of the school culture. Healthy eating, obviously the direct relationship with obesity, metabolic health, general health and well-being, mental health, you know all the connections there. The really strong connection, obviously, with behaviour and attainment. Lots of really good evidence we can draw upon to demonstrate that. And, of course, the wider aim around local food and local food supply, which is why we're here today. So the second group, and I'm sort of covering remits here, which I don't know an awful lot about, is my other team members. So I'm just going to run through them pretty quickly for you. So the first one is the healthy eating regulations. They're going to be reviewed within the next year. As you know, schools need to be providing food provided within the school day that meet the healthy eating in schools nutritional standards and regulations, and these were drawn up in 2013, so now is a very opportune time to review them. And it's also important to review the regs in the space of long-term sustainability for the sector, food supply, being able to know what food schools are going to need for the next couple of years. The next group is around eligibility, and this is another programme for government commitment that we will be reviewing the eligibility criteria when it comes to eligibility related free school meals. So that's obviously mostly talking about secondary schools, but obviously the year groups also in primary schools that are not receiving the universal provision yet. And the commitment is that this will be extended as far as resources allow. So obviously we're going to be looking into scoping secondary options, and as part of that we're also looking at the transitional protection, so the changes that have been made around the way that children can access eligibility related free school meals because of working tax credits. We're providing transitional protection for those children up until 2023, so we're looking to review that. And then the final group, which is my remit, is the food supply and procurement group. So we're working really closely with our foundational economy colleagues who I know are here today. Hi, Anya. And Keith from the food division. So Anya and Keith are going to be co-chairing that group. And it's really there to, you know, the cooperation agreement commitment, which was around more Welsh food on plates, increasing local food supply. We all know why that's a good thing. We are an education team. We sit within the support for learners within education. This is not our area of expertise, so we're going to be absolutely drawing on expertise where we need it. Benefits of local food, Welsh food on plates, supporting Welsh economies and local businesses. There's obviously restrictions there that come with procurement contracts, and that's what we're going to be working and navigating our way through. There's also the benefits of, and this links to the whole school approach, of bringing the food environment closer to the school, closer to the child. There's a better awareness of where their food comes from. There's a connection. They know the milk comes from the dairy down the road. It's that whole food culture, a better awareness of where your food comes from, what it looks like, and providing that as part of the food contracts. And of course, the environment and sustainability effects of local food and locally produced food. So as part of the working group, we're going to be looking to work with stakeholders, experts, people who know their stuff around this, We need to better understand the supply chain network, and I know lots of our local government colleagues are in the room today. We need to better understand contracts that are in place at the moment and how we can affect good change there. And then really learn from the pockets of really good practice that's going on. There's loads of excellent work going on in Wales. Little pockets, schools are doing really good stuff, local authorities are doing really good stuff, regions are doing really good stuff, and it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. It's learning from what's working well, capturing it, and then sharing that. So we're definitely going to be looking to develop pilots, roll out, small-scale change, which then could potentially be rolled out on a larger scale. The Minister's really keen on this, Plaid are really keen on this, so it's going to be driven from the top down, that's for sure. And finally, the link with the healthy eating regs in relation to food supply changes regarding within the regs. For example, sugar in types of food may affect supply chains, so that's going to be part of the remit of that group too. Yeah, and that's it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I recognise quite a few faces in the room in meetings I've been in recently, so I can well imagine you've probably seen some of the slides I'm going to show already. As Kev said, my name's Rhys James, work for Caerphilly Council, I'm Principal Procurement Officer and leading the Welsh Public Sector Collaborative Food Group. It was the WLGA Food Group. There was a bit of confusion around what WLGA involvement was and things like that. WLGA were the vehicle who sort of allowed us to take food on. With the MPS, when they scaled back, a lot of contracts went out. Food was offered out, construction offered out, things like that. WLGA sort of said, right, who wants to be involved? We put a hat in the ring. Always had a strong sort of focus on food in Caerphilly. And I'll show you a couple of things we've done and go through. There's a couple of bits there. WLGA involved. Okay, so the contracts we took over from the MPS, the two main ones there. There was a supply and distribution of fresh food and beverages, and supply and distribution of packaged food. The MPS packaged them up like that into two big contracts. Lots of different lots, lots of different zones, massive contracts. Luckily, our head of procurement sort of said, well, we're not doing that. So Caerphilly set their own contracts up outside of the MPS. Didn't join the MPS, did our own thing, like we've always done. But those two contracts now are coming up next year for renewal, and it's our responsibility to take those forward. So for the Caerphilly arrangements, our contracts are always split into smaller lots to allow smaller bidders. We split them up as far down as we can. Try and look at the supply chain, see what's in Caerphilly, split them down and see what we can get. So far we've managed to get 98% of our spend within Wales. It's about 2.6 million. So the main things that are not in that are things like alcoholic beverages. The likes of Molson Coors and Heineken, big players in the market, they're not based in Wales. They've got depots in Wales and things like that, but we don't class that as being Welsh. Things like that, and there's a couple of other things that we can't quite get in Wales. But it's not a bad stab at getting it right. 19% is within Caerphilly, so it's about 510,000 within Caerphilly. So we've got 4 suppliers at the moment. We've got 2 fruit and veg suppliers, a milk and dairy supplier, and some bread and cakes suppliers. And funnily enough, it's the second time I've given this presentation in the past 24 hours, because we had a supplier event last night when I showed them these slides to go with this. So the contract I'll show you in a second is about bread, sandwiches and buffets and things like that. So we had all our providers locally come in to speak to them about that. And we've got supplier engagement, which, like I said, we did last night to try and help them through. We're lucky in Caerphilly, we've had for a number of years now a supplier relationship officer who helps suppliers. She was there last night, offered her support, and anything they need, they come to her, and she will help them with every part of the bidding process, apart from costs. She leaves that up to them. So that's just a few things. I won't run through them all. Of what Caerphilly's responsible for moving forward. It's the procurement of the contracts. Running the contracts from start to finish, the procurement element, awarding the contracts, making sure that everything is right and proper with third-party audits, food hygiene audits and things like that. We will check all of it. insurances, finance, everything. Make sure complaints are collated regularly. And we're just starting to make strides with an online complaints reporting model that we've developed, and just trying to get everything as much as we can tied up because of things that have happened in the past with E. coli and things like that. So the last one there is encouraging small suppliers to bid on contracts and grow the Welsh supply base. And that's why I've spoke to most of the people in this room before, because that's what we try and do. That's just a sort of overview of what the procurement, the last slide is, just in a sort of roundabout way. The only difference to what others have done is previously is the group agreement part on the right hand side. You know, we're not just going to go off and say this is the best way to do it. We want to try and make it work for everyone who's involved in these contracts. You know, the MPS contracts, they put a lot of suppliers on the frameworks that are out there. A lot of the suppliers that haven't got work out of the contracts, they just got placed on the framework, or they didn't suit the authorities that were named in that contract, so they haven't used those contracts. There's been a lot of sort of separation within the local authorities recently. So we're trying to pull them all back in. So these are all the people who are in at the moment for us. So it's everyone as far up as North Wales. North Wales have always done their own thing, even way back when we were part of something called the Welsh Purchasing Consortium, which was before the MPS. North Wales did their own thing. They use a lot of university frameworks, or they outsource their catering teams. There's a few others in there that are not local authorities, which is why we didn't call it the Local Authority Food Group. It's public sector. There's Pobl Housing, Link Cymru, who are housing, Mid and West Wales Fire, Natural Resources Wales, and down in the corner is Transport for Wales, who we've had some discussions with about helping them with their food requirements, but we're not sure if... Can I ask a stupid question? Why is it all help people then? So, the National Procurement Service took forward all the contracts for local authorities and NHS. What happened then was the NHS contracts were far, far bigger than ours. And that was sort of the overriding factor of everybody wanted to do the NHS and left the local authorities on their own. So when the MPS was scaled back and sort of turned into something else, when the food contracts came out, we took the decision to split NHS and local authorities, public sector, off into its own thing, and we're taking it forward separately, but at the same time as well, working together. So they're not named on here, but they are on this one, NHS on the bottom. So we have a lot of, and since probably the pandemic, and that's one of the positives that came out of the pandemic was working in partnership with NHS and people like that to try and achieve common goals and things like that, and find out what each other's doing with the food contracts and things like that. Everyone else on there is people we are working with, and most of them are in this room. And either we've done work with or doing work with now, just to try and get a sort of steer on what we need to do in these food contracts. So this is one we were talking about last night with our suppliers. It's the sandwiches framework. There isn't a contract in place for this at the moment. This is a new one that's coming out. There's only a couple of local authorities who want to be in it. A lot of them don't use it, but we're going to name everyone on there. And we've sort of nailed down the lots to pre-prepared sandwiches, pre-prepared goods, sandwiches, fill-ins, buffets, and concept foods. And like I said, we had a supplier relationship event last night where there was 6 buffet sandwich providers from Caerphilly in the room, and we told them all about it, and they were all keen, and our splitting relationship got all the details, and they hopefully now we're going to have another meeting with them in January. We're going to put the tender out, and we'll take it forward, and hopefully we can try and get some more local suppliers in. The bigger contracts, we are out scoping now. So the scoping document's out with all the local authorities. We think this is the way it may be structured. So non-massive contracts for different things, non-multiple contracts for the MPS splitting down as far as commodity lots and things like that. And there was contracts for eggs and things like that, but nobody's going to deliver eggs on their own. You know, they want to deliver that as part of a wider, a bigger contract. So this is the way the WPC and Caerphilly have always structured their food contracts, and it seems to work. So although it's going to be for everyone, we will split that down then into zones and local authorities. So Caerphilly's way we've approached it with the fruit and veg. So we've got 2 suppliers locally for fruit and veg. They are high street suppliers who work in a local high street. They would never cope with the volumes that schools do. And from what the guy said earlier about the volumes that are coming, they never go into either. You know, we need wholesalers for that. But they're quite capable of supplying our social services care homes. We've only got 12, and they are more than happy doing that. It's about £50,000, £60,000 a year, split between the 2 of them, and they're more than happy doing that, and it slowly builds them up. And it's one of the things we did with our local milkman, who now provides a lot of different things, and there's case studies out there about that as well, or if you want to email me and I can send it on to you. But that's the way we do it. You start small, give them small bits of work, and then build them up slowly. It's not going to be quick. You know, it's taken 10 years for our local provider to get where they are today. And they're turning over £1 million now, which is massive. But it's not going to be a quick thing. But it's a start, and it's starting small and building up. So there's a few food policy initiatives, and Gemma mentioned one earlier, about looking at public sector food strategy, which is the healthy food in schools regulations and things like that. We work with Larder Cymru through some Welsh Government funding, and they're looking at working with suppliers to come in. We look working with Welsh Government on the public sector food strategy and the Peter Fox food bill that went into the Senate last month or the month before. We've had a couple of meetings with the research guys there on that. The foundational economy team, who are in here as well, like Gemma mentioned, working with those guys, and they're funding different things on supply chains, green and decarb, and greener transport and improving skills. We're also looking at Market Intelligence Group, which is one that's set up by the WLGA, and we feed into that, and they feed information out to the wider network in Wales on what's happening in supply chains at the moment. Not just food, there's everything in there, IT, social services, lots of things like that. And there's a cross-party working group from the Senedd that sit on food, and I know Kevin's involved in that one, with Senedd members, and they talk about lots of things to do with free school meals. We did try and link in others as well to that group, because they didn't at the start for some reason. So I'm going to finish with what's working and what is not. So there's a big push for local and Welsh since the pandemic, and in the free school meal statement that the Welsh Gov team mentioned earlier. And we need to know how we can impact that with the foundational economy team, the free school meals team in Welsh Gov, and from ourselves. So we need to look at what we can do to support that, support foundational economy, environmental agendas, the free school meal rollout, decarb impacts. How do we measure the decarb impacts that we have on that? We need to know who's out there in Wales. There isn't one map for food suppliers in Wales. So Monmouthshire and the foundational economy team are looking at a mapping tool. Monmouth have done the work, and I know there's people in the room who've looked at it and think it's fantastic. So we need to look at that and what we can use that information for. There's working groups I sit on with Claire's, Welsh Gov, supplier groups, WLGA groups, NHS. There's a lot of groups out there at the moment that do not link in or talk to each other. There's no coordinated approach. And one of the positives I've seen in the Peter Fox food bill is a central point for that. They're asking for somebody to be responsible for coordinating everything in Wales and taking that forward. Procurement is the answer to everything. I know luckily you're all laughing. I knew you would. But there's many other things that need to happen first. The food in schools regulations need to change and be more flexible and adaptive. You know, we can go out, we can put in our contracts next year and buy whatever we want. Whatever the guys want us to buy, we'll buy it. That's not a problem. But it's got to work for them. You know, there's no point in us going out and buying 4,000 kilos of corned beef when they don't need it. You know, there's things like that. And the central point of information, like I said, you know, hopefully with the food bill, they'll have that central point. And hopefully they will have somebody sat in the middle who coordinate everything. That's me.
Hi everyone, I'm going to talk you through a little bit of our school meals work that we're doing in Wales. But before I start, for those of you that don't know us, I'm just going to give you a really quick overview of Nesta and what we do, just to kind of provide some of that context. So Nesta is a UK innovation agency for social good. We've been around for 20 years and we design, test and scale solutions for society's biggest problems. And we're a foundation, so we're really fortunate that we've got that, and we work with partners through all of our work. So about a year and a half ago, we launched a new strategy, which is really focused around 3 different mission areas. One is around education, closing some of the gap between those that are most disadvantaged and the kind of national average in the early years and secondary schools. The second is a healthy life, which I'll talk to you about today. And the third is around a sustainable future, looking at decarbonisation of homes and productivity. But we've essentially got 3 different roles that we play. So an innovation partner is kind of our core function, where we'll work with partners, so whether that's local councils, food businesses in the Healthy Life mission, industry, national policymakers, in order to kind of work towards designing, testing and scaling solutions. We've got an investment area where we'll invest in early stage ventures, and then a systems shaper role, looking at that wider system. But really the kind of core of what we bring, and this is what we kind of bring to the partnerships that we work with, are our innovation methods. So we've got a team of behavioural scientists, data scientists, experimentation and evidence practitioners, design and technology, arts and collective intelligence. So we've got a team of people internally that have these different skill sets, and we'll bring these different methods together, working alongside other experts kind of in our mission areas in partnership to kind of work towards our goals. So that's kind of a bit about how Nesta works. And within the Healthy Life mission, our primary focus is looking at reducing obesity. So we are kind of got a UK-wide ambition to kind of stretch to halve the prevalence of obesity, but we do have teams in Wales and in Scotland, and very much kind of looking specifically at the different nations and what the needs are. So why do we care about school food? You'll know that childhood obesity rates are higher in Wales than in other parts of the UK. And school provides 17% of children's snacks and meals are eaten in school. So that's a really good opportunity for us to improve diets. Also, as we heard from the Welsh Government, there's nearly 200,000 children that will be becoming eligible for school food. And so as I said, we're quite new to the area. Nesta kind of launched this new strategy we kind of launched in Wales about a year ago. So what we've done is, over the last kind of 6 months, we've been talking to lots of people in this room and others to understand the landscape. And we developed quite a simple, very simplified version of a school food system map, looking at the different stakeholders, what some of those key decision makers are, and essentially understanding where might we intervene in the system to kind of create healthier food, and if we intervene in a particular area, what might the impact of that be. So we worked with our design practice, where we talked to lots of different stakeholders and kind of developed this iteratively along with many people such as yourselves. And what did we learn? A lot of this might not be new to you, but collaboration is key. There's no one stakeholder can improve the primary school food. Getting the school food standards and requirements is right as it cascades down, and we know that that's already something that the Welsh Government are reviewing. There's also opportunity to kind of inspire and empower school leadership to think about their environments in terms of the dining experience, the culture, how we can kind of make that a better experience and enable people to promote them to eat those healthier foods, make that more engaging. And finally, the area I'm going to talk a little bit more about today is around better ways to engage parents and children in the school meal offer. So on that last point, why is it important to engage children and parents? So prior research has suggested that packed lunches are typically less healthy than school meals. They're more calorific, they have more saturated fat and more sugar. And so this suggests that if we increase take-up of school meals, we can improve children's diets. And we know that the universal free school meals offer will do most of the heavy lifting. So we estimate from kind of other areas like Scotland and other areas where this has happened, potentially we could get to 80% through the offer itself. But actually that could leave up to 50,000 children in Wales that aren't yet benefiting from school meals, and we need to kind of further incentivise and motivate them to increase take-up. We've done some of our own exploratory research at Nesta, so we were worried that what if it was that the 20% are all actually really healthy packed lunches? If they were all the really kind of healthy group, then increasing take-up wouldn't necessarily create the impact that we might have. So our exploratory research suggests that we did with parents who are essentially, they are eligible for free school meals in Wales and Scotland, but they were still giving packed lunches. So we looked at kind of the calorie content of their packed lunches, and it validates the original research with that the packed lunches were less healthy. So that's why we think it's a valuable thing to continue to explore. So then we were wondering, well, how might we increase take-up? What are some of the levers that we might want to pull to increase take-up? So we did a survey with 259 Welsh and Scottish parents that kind of fall within that bracket. We asked them a bunch of different questions, which we're happy to share more about the results on that separately for anyone that's interested. But one of the questions that we asked them is, which of the following things would most influence your child to eat a school meal? I know the graph is very kind of difficult to read, but we pulled out the kind of some of the key findings that link to engaging children and parents in the school meal offer. So the first one was around school meal menus created in collaboration with pupils. The second was around meeting high nutritional standards. Now, we've kept this as part of engaging parents and children, partly because we believe, but yet to be tested, that there's potentially a bit of a disconnect in terms of the perception of the nutritional quality of school meals and the reality of them. So we want to make sure that people actually understand the standards of the meals. Then that kind of links to the third point, information on the nutritional content shared with parents. And finally, parents are given the opportunity to try school meals. So these are just some early ideas of kind of what we might, what kind of came through in our survey as influencing people to increase their take-up of school meals. So what's next for us? We're kind of launching a pilot project, and we'd really love to partner with a local council, and initially just 4 schools in their area. And we'd be looking to conduct rapid research with our various kind of different methods that we have at Nesta to understand what's been tried before, what are your constraints, what are the opportunities, what might we do in this area. And then we'll run a process called speed testing, which we've used at Nesta, where we kind of we'll develop 4 low fidelity prototypes. So these are 4 different interventions that we might use to engage parents and children in the school meals. We'll kind of test these with parents and children in 2 of the schools. We'll refine that, we'll test it again, and then also have workshops with councils and schools, the council and schools, in order to refine that further, make sure that it kind of, we believe it's operationalizable, et cetera, meets different needs. So that would be kind of the speed testing phase, and we'd work really closely with our design practice that's really used to kind of running through this process, but very much in partnership with the schools to make sure that we're using your expertise. And then finally, we're looking to run an online simulation randomized controlled trial with a wider selection of Welsh parents to see which of these prototypes might be more effective. And in a future phase, we'd look to evaluate that much more rigorously. So just finally, where myself and my colleague Jonathan will be around and later on today, but if you know any efforts of things going on that will help us, please reach out. If I know there's various councils in here, if you're interested, might be interested in working with us, anyone else that knows something that kind of how this might impact on the food system, and just more generally, we're looking to kind of develop our work in the school meal space and very much keen to work in partnership. So please get in touch, and looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Bore da pawb. I'm Claire from Cynal Cymru. For those of you that don't know us, we're a sustainable development organisation. Our mission is to accelerate progress towards sustainability, which we define as a fair and just society, a low-carbon economy with a thriving natural environment. So as part of that work, we are the Living Wage Accreditation Partner for Wales, and we also facilitate a community of practice on the foundational economy on behalf of Welsh Government. So under that banner, and with Kevin's help, we have convened a couple of roundtables. Obviously, food is a core foundational sector, and we brought together members of the community of practice and wider stakeholders to look at some of the challenges around free school meals, particularly drawing in learning from outside of Wales. So the first session was about learning lessons from Scotland, where there's been universal provision of free school meals for infants since 2015. And the second focused more on sustainability, and we heard from Castle Howell about issues to do with the supply chain, but also the experience from the city of Malmö, where they introduced a very ambitious target for all food served by the municipality to be organic within a 10-year timeframe. So we had diverse perspectives, but there were some common themes that I'll try and share. There are really detailed notes from both of these roundtables, so I'm just scratching the surface, and if you'd like more information, my email is there. And apologies for people here that already sat through both roundtables. Okay, so as you've heard from everyone, we need to look at this policy as a vehicle for multiple policy objectives, and that theme of sort of collaboration across the board and with cross-ministerial buy-in was reiterated by all of our speakers. It was also noted, particularly by our Scottish speakers, that sometimes there's a lot of focus on the procurement and getting the food to the school, but less concerning how that food is then served in terms of menu design and also things like portion size. In Scotland, they found, for example, that many of the benefits of social eating, which is sort of setting the social norms around avoiding waste, about routinely eating fresh fruit and veg, those directly correlated with the amount of dining supervision available. And yet we know the role of dining supervisors in terms of numbers and hours is vulnerable to cost cutting, perhaps because it's not valued or recognised, as in the case with other parts of the food system. But our speakers were keen to stress that they saw the commitment to free school meals as being an investment in the learner as opposed to just the learning. And that's not just about educational attainment, but looking at the provision of free school meals as beyond something that just provides calories and nutrition, but something that can benefit the whole school community and certainly pupils beyond the school day. The need for a whole school approach was something that came through very strongly, getting buy-in and support from school staff across the board. Obviously, catering and dining staff, in terms of exemplifying the desired behaviours, which might be finishing what's on your plate, providing a safe environment to make trying new food combinations fun or introducing sort of new tastes, but the role of head teachers as well, in giving permission for food to actually be a priority within the school day. So it's not just the food that should be valued. That was something that, a message that came across very clearly, that it's also, there is so much that can be taught, can be exemplified, can be demonstrated by those that are involved with the food and serving the food, and also helping to avoid the mismatch that sometimes exists between what children learn about food and supply chains in the curriculum and then what they experience then in terms of their school meal. Something else that was shared was this urgent need to develop systems thinking capacity. So it was highlighted particularly by Scotland that the school canteen is a really demanding and relentless operating environment, and on top of that, catering staff are employed, usually not outside term time and not outside the time that they need for specific preparation, sort of food serving and food cleanup. So there's very little time to strategize and plan for how that meal system can meet these broader policy objectives. But there is a whole wealth of knowledge and skills that perhaps we're not drawing on as much as we could. Okay, so all these things were seen as being really important because it's an investment and helping shape future lifestyle choices. So the benefits to public health and well-being, extend far beyond the school day and beyond school years. One other thing that our speakers were keen to stress was that the universal provision didn't just benefit cash-poor families, but those with time constraints or knowledge constraints in terms of catering and cooking meals were also able to benefit, as well as all the sort of local economic multipliers and other things that other speakers have touched on. Okay. Let's have another look. What our speakers obviously also talked about was that, when you have a very ambitious goal, there are multiple actors that also need to be part of that. So if we think about the City of Malmö, they introduced that very ambitious target that all public food should be organic. And one of the reasons that they went for organic was because it was already an understood and defined process, and there were clear monitoring processes in place. So whilst the target was very ambitious, it sent out an unequivocal message about the direction of travel, and that's really important for your suppliers and your producers to know what the goalposts are. They also set this 10-year time frame because, obviously people need time to adapt. Ed Morgan from Castle Howell also spoke about the need to rebalance risk within the supply chain so that it's not disproportionately borne by your smaller producers or suppliers, particularly those that are having to adapt to meet new targets, to meet new regulatory requirements, whatever it might be, or those entering the supply chain for the first time. So he gave some great examples about how Castle Howell were helping with yield forecasts, helping provide guaranteed markets and uses for surplus, things like that I can share, but I won't try to now because I won't do Ed justice. Also, Malmö, with that very ambitious target, we're really keen to say it's a marathon, not a sprint, and compromise is essential. So they set a 10-year time frame, but they were also very clear about speaking to schools and saying, look, there's no point trying to do everything at once because you'll just blow your budget and that just leads to disappointment and failure. Concentrate on a few core product lines, and see how you go. It's also not a question of doing everything or doing nothing. It is a journey and it's a transition. Something I thought was really interesting from Malmö's experience was that the city had no additional budget in terms of their food budget to make these changes, but they did have investment in education, skills and training. So there were different courses for different audiences that focus not just on how you can produce a low-carbon, nutritious meal, but why. Because then once you get that buy-in to these big policy aspirations, then you also unleash all that creativity that people can contribute. So I think that's all I want to share for now. We have absolutely stacks of notes about these roundtables. There are some rather more accessible blogs that are on our website. But if anybody would like to learn more on some of the detail, I should say, because I've tantalised you now with that target of Malmö getting to 100% organic within 10 years, just say they didn't get to 100%. Well, they were never going to. They recognised that not all ingredients are available organically. So they accepted that all food, being able to say, all our food in the city is organic in the public sector, they would count 90% of food classified as organic as meeting that target. They got to 70% within 10 years, which is really impressive. What they found was they have two systems for serving school food. So for the secondary, they have different age definitions in Sweden. But anyway, I think it's for the secondary schools. There were central hubs, sort of central kitchens that would produce one menu for each day, so all the schools got served the same meal on that day. Those were able to hit that 90%. In the other schools where there were smaller hubs that had more control over their menus and did different things, they didn't quite get there, but perhaps it indicates that some central coordination can help. All right, that's all I want to share for now. Thank you very much.